This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 42nd time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live on this Father's Day. Happy Father's Day out there to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to my father, and I hope you had a good day today. The week is over now, another week in the books, and I'm just filling time here because, well, you already know what this is about. This is a look at the week's past news stories in the world of entertainment, some other stories of intrigue. I will say, though, that there's not going to be like a big, stupid person story like I've had the last couple of weeks, which I'm a little bit bummed by because I thought those were the more fun segments to do. Like 2 weeks ago, we talked about the two YouTube guys who one of them was like a sexual offender, and they were going out to a college and pranking people. And then last week we had the guy who kept threatening Disney with the rights to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of a story this week, but there are some stupid stories to go around this week, and we'll get to those when we get to the news stories. It was a big news week, and we'll get to that in just a little bit here. But it was also a big week at the box office, and the reports of the box office's demise have been greatly exaggerated, as this weekend has proven. This month in general, the first 2 weeks of the month of June have been very successful for the box office, and we're going to take a look at that right now by looking at the top 5, as we usually do here. And you're not going to see the instant success right away with the number 5 film, which is The Watchers, which opened last week. Still hanging in there, barely hanging in there by about $200,000 compared to If, which is just underneath it and finally crossed the $100 million mark, which I'm glad to see that happen. But The Watchers brought in about $3.7 million, $3.665 million, 47.7% drop off from last week, $13.6 million after 2 weeks. Worldwide, the gross on this is $23 million. I think the budget on this was like in the $40 million range, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here just to make sure. The budget isn't on here, so we don't know how well this opening did, but 2 weeks, $13 million, nothing really much to talk about there. I'm assuming that it cost much more than that, but it cost them $30 million to acquire it, so there's that. But yeah, other than that, though, nothing too spectacular about this one. Just kind of another stumble for Warner Brothers this summer, which, by the way, Furioso is completely just gone. They lost another 1,100 theaters this week, dropping it down out of the top. It was close to out of the top 5, out of the top 10 actually. Number 7 with $2.4 million, $63.1 million after 4 weeks, $160 million worldwide, which is definitely not a good thing for that movie. Even though the movie was really good, I just think, evidently audiences were not keen on checking out a new Furiosa movie, a new Mad Max movie, I should say. But Furiosa was a good movie, though. Nothing going against that. It's just like, this was just not the right time to release it. Same thing with The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy's still hanging in there too, but even then, it's not making a huge dent to the box office. It's 7 weeks, it's brought in $87.9 million, which is a shame because that movie's also pretty awesome too. But let's get back to the top 5 here. Let's get to number 2, and number 4, actually. This was number 2 last week, I'm sorry. The Garfield movie, which, considering what opened at number 1 this weekend, took the expected drop-off of 50%, $5 million this week, bringing its 4-week total up to $78.5 million, surpassing Garfield the movie, the 2004 movie, which actually comes out 20 years ago Tuesday on June 18th. And But this thing cost $60 million. It's a hit. It's a worldwide hit of $217 million. So it's one of the early hits of the summer. I mean, this is a film that did not get the best reviews in general, but it's hanging on strong, and it's made enough so that they can make a sequel to it. I mean, the fact that they were able to say that we made money on this, give us a chance to do Angry Birds 3, because it's the same people that did the Angry Birds movies, and lo and behold, they got the chance that they just announced that they're going to do a third one now, last week, which we talked about. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Garfield movie 2 gets announced within the next couple months or so. So let's go ahead and move up to number 3, one that actually moved up from a couple of weeks, but actually this one's pretty interesting. This is not going to get talked about too much, but this is interesting what happened to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So most of the numbers here, they all for the top 10 dropped off between 40%, 50%, 60%, but not Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, $5.2 million, only dropping 4% from last week, which is pretty impressive stuff. I mean, again, it's not really going to be something that's going to be as noteworthy as the number one movie, but that's a rare drop-off for a film like that. I mean, especially a movie that's been around for 6 weeks, but $5.2 million, only dropping 4%, $157.8 million after 6 weeks. Worldwide gross is $374.5 million, so they're gonna get to make that Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out. And speaking of movie franchises that are definitely going to continue, the number 2 movie. Expect another Bad Boys movie. Bad Boys Ride or Die. Opened to over $56 million last week. Had a relatively good drop-off this week. Only 41% drop-off, $33 million. After 2 weeks, it's already surpassed its $100 million budget at $112.2 million. The worldwide gross is $214 million. This weekend actually took the Bad Boys franchise over $1 billion. So it took them 4 films to get past the $1 billion mark, and it helps when you have the last 2 movies making as much money as they did. And like I said, it's not gonna surprise me at all if the Bad Boys series continues after this point. Great movie. These directors and these know what they're doing. The Bad Boys is Sony's equivalent to the Mission Impossible franchise, an action franchise that feels like it was dead in the water, and then all of a sudden they came storming back in the last couple of years, and these are becoming event pictures again. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where they go with that direction in general. But let's get to the big story of the week, and that is, of course, the number 1 movie this week, and that is Disney Pixar's Inside Out 2, which, after the year that Disney had last year, a lot of their films underperformed. I didn't hate most of Disney's movies from last year like most people did, but this was a nice return to form for them in terms of the box office, because Inside Out 2, the initial projections were somewhere between, I think Disney had it at like $80 million for their initial projections, because they didn't really know how this film was going to turn out. In fact, the reviews for this didn't really come out until Wednesday, which, you know, usually that's not a good sign for a family film to have their reviews coming out so close to the release date. I mean, like 2 days before the movie's supposed to come out. But I mean, look at Despicable Me 4 had their first review come out on Variety, which was not very positive, by the way. Sounds like they took the Secret Life of Pets 2 method with doing with the next Despicable Me movie. That still has about 3 or 4 weeks to go before that comes out. But still probably going to be the next big $100 million hit, as after Inside Out 2, which, wow, I mean, I did not think Inside Out 2 was that anticipated, that so many people said, we are so ready for another one, we're going to break box office records here. I mean, this is the best opening weekend for the movie since Barbie came out. I mean, that's how good this movie opened up to. Inside Out 2 brought in $155 million. Now, the original Inside Out brought in $95 million. It was around that mark, 95, I think it was. Let me just double check here just to make sure, because I want to be correct on this. Where is it? Yeah, $90 million, $90.4 million, which actually was not the number 1 movie that weekend. It was actually Jurassic World, who made over 100. I think it was still making $100 million even after opening the week before at like 200 something million. I can't remember what it was though, but it was a record back then. But Inside Out 2, $155 million on this. The budget on this was $200 million. Worldwide grosses already at $295 million. Needless to say, this movie's going to make its money back easily, and it's going to exceed $500 million, if not more, when it's all said and done. And there's a lot of records to look at with Inside Out 2. The big one, of course, is that this is actually the third highest animated opening weekend of all time. Only the second best ever for a Pixar film, behind Incredibles 2. The Super Mario Brothers movie, I think, opened up around $160 million last year. I think we put this in at number 3, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, Inside Out 2 did pretty well. I mean, not only with the box office in general, but the buzz on it was building around it very quickly. Like, the first teaser trailer did very well, like, online. It got like 157 million views in the first 24 hours. It was actually the most viewed animated trailer of all time before Moana 2 actually beat that not too long ago. And which I'm very curious to see how that one's going to pan out. Because that one was supposed to be the Moana TV series, and they truncated it down to one movie. And I don't know where the direction that's going to go. I'm still kind of curious to check it out, since they've got most of the people involved in it still, in terms of the cast and all. But we'll talk about Moana a little bit, because she made some news in this week. Not her in particular, but the franchise in particular made news this week. But there's a lot of buzz about the movie in general. Of course, Disney went all out on the marketing. They had like a thing for the NBA Finals where you had Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony entering with the emotions inside of them. There was like a partnership with America's Got Talent. There was a thing with the Stanley Cup playoffs. McDonald's got involved. I mean, the marketing blitz was on with this movie. But the big thing about the film in general was that, you know, the film did very well with critics. I mean, this is a film that some people have argued is almost as good, if not better, than the original film. And the original film is a classic movie. So, and I can't really say for certain, because unfortunately I didn't go see it this weekend. I'm gonna check it out next weekend, though. I really am excited to see it. And the good news about this movie is that this thing's going to have legs going for the next couple of weeks, because there's no big family release coming until Despicable Me 4 opens up on 4th of July weekend. But then, like, Inside Out 2 comes out, and the early word of mouth on Deadpool and Wolverine, possibly over $239 million, maybe surpassing the record of Avengers Endgame. Needless to say, not only is the box office back, but Disney is back big time. I mean, there was a lot of scrutiny between Wish and Inside Out 2 for the lack of new releases that they had coming out. But this weekend just proves that, hey, Disney is still a powerhouse, and they are still making money, even though whether people like it or not. I mean, this is just what they do. They do it so well. And here's the end result of it now. A $155 million opening weekend for a sequel that, truth be told, probably did not need to exist, but the other word of mouth says that people are glad it exists, because it's a pretty damn good movie. Once again, I haven't seen it yet. I'm still going to go check it out next week, so I'll have my thoughts on that coming up on the next time about the movies next week, when I go talk about the movies next week when I go and see it. So that is the weekend box office in general, and like I said, it's not going to be... It's got a few weeks before big competition comes in, because next week the big new release is The Bike Riders, which should not be expected to make that type of money that Inside Out 2 made. Not by any means necessary, but I don't even think it's going to do that well in general, because movies like this do not usually do that well, especially with the box office. I mean, it could be a critical success. I mean, I think it is still a critical success at this point, since reviews have been coming out for months now, but it's not really a summer movie, and I think that's going to hurt the film in the long run, in terms of financial things, for financial aspects for it. But critically, it should do well enough. But yeah, there's no real stiff competition coming up for Inside Out 2 until we get to, the next big one is going to be A Quiet Place Day 1, which is already looking like it's going to do very well. I think they were projecting somewhere like $50 million for the start for that movie, which, you know, it just goes to show that the box office really is not dead in general. It's just, you need movies that people want to go out and see at the right possible times. Like I said before, The Fall Guy should not have been released as the film to start off the summer movie season. That was a mistake on the part of Universal for doing that. And look at what's happening now in June. We've already had 2 weeks where we have 2 big new releases, and they're making a ton of money. They're making up for May's underperformances. So yeah, it's a good time right now for the box office in general. So, with that said, that's the box office. So let's go ahead and get into some story time. And boy, there were a lot of stories this week. And let's start with one. Let's start with the latest updates on Paramount and Skydance, and the deal that was going to happen last week, and now it's not. So at this point, 2 weeks ago, Paramount and Skydance just seemed like they were ready to finally seal the deal. Paramount was finally going to be purchased under Skydance for $8 billion. There was supposed to be a big presser on Tuesday, and then nothing happened. And then the following Monday, we got this story from the Hollywood Reporter that Shari Redstone decided that, we're not going to do any offers with Skydance anymore. And Skydance is officially out of the deal. Shari Redstone has ended talks in the latest offer from Paramount Global for the consortium led by Skydance and Redbird Capital, placing the future of the entertainment company in a fresh period of uncertainty. Second break there. A spokesperson for the Redstone-run National Amusements, which controls Paramount, states that the company announced that they have not been able to reach mutually acceptable terms regarding the potential transaction with Skydance Media for the acquisition of a controlling stake in NAI. The statement added that NAI supports the recently announced strategic plan being executed by Paramount's Office of the CEO, as well as their ongoing work and that of the company's board of directors to continue to explore opportunities to drive value creation for all Paramount shareholders. Paramount Global's special committee on the board of directors also weighed in and noted that it did not vote on any potential transaction on Tuesday. The special committee met on Tuesday to discuss progress of a discussion regarding a potential transaction with Skydance Media. At the time, the special committee was informed by a representative of National Amusements, Inc. that it did not have an agreement on a deal with Skydance Media and didn't anticipate a path forward on the transaction. The special committee did not vote on any potential transaction. According to a source familiar with the talks, Redstone's request for a majority of the minority vote, in which other Class A shareholders could vote to approve or nix the deal, was a non-starter for Skydance, and the studio was anticipating a regulatory review of more than a year, which gave Redstone pause given the constraint it would have required of the business in the meantime. Redstone is now looking to sell NAI alone to another potential suitor. But the Skydance team, which submitted its best and final offer in April, has long been betting that other studios will eventually drop out. Skydance had secured approval from Paramount's independent board committee in a sweetened deal that would see Paramount's non-voting shareholders have the option to cash out at $15 per share. It would also have been Skydance acquire Redstone's National Amusements for almost $2 billion. Shari Redstone has run the company since her father's death in 2020. Paramount's focus has been the focus of intense speculation in recent months, with its streaming business still hemorrhaging cash, its linear TV business in continued decline, and its credit rating on the ropes. In addition to Skydance, Apollo and Sony have kicked the tires on the company, which ousted its CEO, Bob Bakish, in April, replacing him with a trio of executives in the office of the CEO. Those three executives, Brian Robin, George Cheeks, and Chris McCarthy, outlined their own shared vision for the company that would include further cost-cutting, the divestment of non-core assets, perhaps BET, and seeks potential partners in streaming. So, the bottom line is we have no idea what the hell is going on with Paramount, and it's becoming increasingly more and more likely that we will never know what will happen with Paramount, because Shari Redstone apparently has something going on that is just like it's amazing how we went from this is almost going to happen, this is surely going to happen, and now it's not going to happen anymore. It's just like, it really does not feel like they have any idea what the hell they're doing by any means necessary. I mean, this is just something that feels like it's completely out of nowhere, makes no sense whatsoever, and it just does not make any sense at all on what the hell they're doing. Like, what is the end result of this whole thing? Like, what are we supposed to have as the final what is it supposed to mean when it's all said and done? I mean, like, what are we supposed to get out of this? It just doesn't really, it does not make any sense whatsoever, and quite honestly, I really, really do not believe that we're going to find out anytime soon what's going to happen with Paramount. I think they're going to be stuck in limbo for a long period of time. Nobody's going to figure out nobody's going to figure out what's going to be the final resolution when this is all said and done, because quite frankly, even I don't think Shari Redstone even knows what she wants anymore. Like, it's like Star Wars fans now. It's like that. It's just like they don't know what the hell they want at this point with what they're trying to accomplish here. And it's just like it just does not make any sense at all. And and it's getting to the point now where I'm getting sick and tired of having to cover this almost every single week and having nothing happen whatsoever. But yeah. So as far as we know right now, Paramount Pictures is still completely has no idea what the hell they're doing next, and quite frankly, I don't know what the hell they're doing next either. But they are still working as we move on to the next story we have here, which is also Paramount related. Yes, even with the uncertainty of Paramount Pictures, they still have to run a studio, and one of the big stories this week from them is that they are updating An Officer and a Gentleman, the classic movie which starred Richard Gere, Deborah Winger, gave us the song Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong, and also marked Louis Gossett Jr.'s historical achievement of becoming the first black Best Supporting Actor Oscar winner. And I've got the story right here from Variety. And this will star Miles Teller in it. Miles Teller, of course, from Whiplash and Top Gun Maverick. An Officer and a Gentleman centers on Gere's Zach Mayo, an aspiring Navy aviator who clashes with his hard-nosed drill instructor, Gunnery Sergeant Emma Foley, played by Louis Gossett Jr., while navigating a budding romance with Paula, played by Deborah Winger, a factory worker with dreams of getting out of her small town. The Taylor Hackford-directed romantic drama was also a box office smash, earning $190 million globally. Dana Fox wrote the latest draft of the script for the new movie following a draft written by Matt Johnson. Temple Hill is producing the project, and I believe that's, is that LeBron James's company, or is it Spring Hill? I think it might be Spring Hill. Let me just double check here. Okay, it is Spring Hill. I thought for a second that it would have made sense if it was that, if they would have put him in there, but that's not. This isn't Spring Hill though. This is Temple Hill. So I just wanted to be clear on that. But it's a return to the cadet life for Teller, who starred as hotshot Navy pilot Bradley Rooster Bradshaw, son of the beloved Goose, in 2022's Top Gun Maverick. The long-awaited sequel was a massive hit at the box office, grossing over $1.4 billion and nabbing 6 Oscar nominations, including a Best Picture nod. Since making his screen debut in 2010's Rabbit Hole, Teller has built a resume that includes the Oscar-winning drama Whiplash, The Spectacular Now, which won him the Dramatic Special Jury Award for acting at the 2013 Sundance Film Festival. Excuse me. Paramount's Footloose remake, as well as the Godfather series, The Offer for Paramount Plus. He is currently in production on A24's Eternity and just wrapped production for Lionsgate's Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic, which is set to release in 2025. Next, he will star in executive produced Skydance's The Gorge, a high-action, genre-bending love story for Apple, directed by Scott Derrickson and co-starring Anya Taylor-Joy. So the original Officer and a Gentleman is a classic movie, and it's one of those ones that I could see easily being remade for a new generation. It's a classic film that has some of the best. I mean, the song I talked about before, "Up Where We Belong," is a great song. Great performances all around. Richard Gere is great in the film. Deborah Winger, Louis Gossett Jr., directed by Taylor Hackford. It's a really good movie, and it really is a strong film in general. Like it feels like a melodrama, but it's a melodrama done right. It's a film that just gets you. Like, it's a really damn good movie, man. I can't say too much about it. It's going to be really hard to top it, though. But, I mean, there's a way you could do this to modernize it for a new generation. So, I'm definitely very curious to see where they go with the direction for this. It just kind of depends on who they get for the director for this. They get a good director, it could work out pretty well. But if they get, like, a hack director, who knows? It probably will end up being not that great. And not much more to say about that one. That's An Officer and a Gentleman. That's a film I can get behind. This next one, not so much. This is the stupidest story of the entire week. So let's talk about the movie Practical Magic. This was a movie that came out in 1998. Stars Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. It kind of came out around the same time that the show Charmed did, even though both of these shows both the show and the movie are not connected. Charmed was on the WB, even though it was produced by Paramount. This was produced by Warner Brothers. I remember talking about this movie a little bit ago on Time About the Movies when I got to this point when the film came out on October 16th, 1998. And I'm just going to let you hear my thoughts on this movie in general, since I've already talked about it in length before. Here's what I had to say when I did this episode on this particular date for this particular film that we're about to talk about.
So this is based off of a book by Alice Hoffman about Bullock and Kidman split sisters Sally and Gillian Owens, who descended from a long line of witches and were raised by their aunts after their parents' death from Cruz. The sisters were taught to use the practical magic as they grew up, and as adults, they must use the magic to destroy the spirit before it kills them. So, kind of it's interesting because this came out around the same time as the TV series Tomlin on the WB, and it's interesting how you would think that both of these shows both the show and the movie were kind of connected in a way because they came out around the same time. And again, probably not, because Tomlin, I think, was produced by Paramount, even though it was released on the WB. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting that this came out around the same time. Directed by Griffin Dunn, who last did Addicted to Love, which was not a good movie that came out, but I don't remember too much about this one, but from what I saw from it, I don't think it was terrible. I think most people went to see it because of Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. I mean, you have two dynamite actresses at the time working together here. And it certainly was a lot better than Bullock's other film in '98, Hope Flows, which was just a disaster on so many levels. But this, cool concept, interesting ideas overall, but I don't know, kind of a generic romantic drama, nothing too crazy in there. Got a good cast here, Stockard Channing, Diane Wiest, Aidan Quinn, Goran Visnik in there. Don't remember too much about it. Saw it one time, didn't think it was that bad, but it's been a while since I've seen it, though, so I don't really know for certain if it's held up over the years. But that's Practical Magic, so let's...
Okay, so that's what was basically my thoughts on Practical Magic. For a one-time watch, I thought it was alright, but I didn't think it had anything too memorable to it in terms of longevity. I thought it was just a product at the time. People went to go see it because of the fact that it had the star power of Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, who have now since then have gone on to become Academy Award-winning actresses in their own rights. And I thought, okay, one-time movie, I'll probably never see another movie around this again. Well, the good old people at Warner Brothers made the decision this week to... This is like I said, the stupidest story of the entire week. They are making a Practical Magic 2. Here's the story from Deadline Hollywood, where Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman are in negotiations to return for Practical Magic 2. In fact, it was confirmed later in the week that Nicole Kidman will be returning for Practical Magic 2. Sandra Bullock is still contemplating whether or not she wants to do this, and I would probably tell her no, but that's for the later on in the discussion. But Akiva Goldsman, who penned the original film alongside Robin Secord and Adam Brooks, will return to write the screenplay. Bullock and Kidman are expected to produce alongside the original's Denise DeNova. Details as to the sequel's plot are under wraps for now. Directed by Griffin Dunn, Practical Magic adapts the 1995 novel from Alice Hoffman. The story follows two sisters, Sally and Gillian Owens, who come from a long line of witches. Orphaned at a young age, they are raised by their eccentric aunts who embrace their magical heritage. However, the Owens family is cursed. Any man who falls in love with an Owens woman is doomed to an untimely death. Subsequently, Sally and Gillian struggle with the powers and the consequences of the family curse. Sally attempts to lead a normal life, distancing herself from magic, but tragedy strikes when her husband dies. Gillian, on the other hand, lives a wild life, embracing her magical abilities. The sisters are reunited with Gillian, finding herself in a dangerous relationship with Jimmy Angelo, played by Goran Visnik, who's a violent man. In an effort to protect Gillian, the sisters accidentally kill Jimmy, leading to a series of supernatural events as they attempt to hide his death and ultimately break the family curse. Stockard Channing, Diane Wiest, and Aidan Quinn also starred in the original Practical Magic, which grossed over $68 million worldwide. Over a $75 million budget. So it wasn't really that big of a hit to begin with, but it's since, I guess, gained a cult following because they're making the sequel to this. And, Warner freaking Brothers does it again. Like, this is the studio that says, we can't release Batgirl because we don't think it's that good, but we'll release The Flash because we're gonna hype it up as like the movie you have to see. And don't worry about the bad special effects and all that. That's supposed to be bad. That's bad enough. They won't release Scoop Holiday Haunt or Coyote vs. Acme because there clearly isn't an audience for Scooby-Doo or the Looney Tunes anymore. Like, why would you even suggest that we do that? We just wasted all of our money, and we're gonna write these down as tax write-offs. The studio that won't release those movies is wasting millions of dollars to make a sequel to Practical Magic. Can you see why this is the stupidest story of the entire week? Who was asking for a Practical Magic 2? And look, there might be a fan base out there. I know these are based off of books, but the movie was not that big of a hit to begin with. It got thrashed by critics when it came out, and it didn't really I've never heard anybody have this massive following for this movie like they would do with something like Hocus Pocus, which has a following to it. I mean, there are movies that have sequels come out that have had followings to it. I've never heard anybody talk about practical magic as something that has this loyal following that demands a sequel that needed to be made. And Warner Brothers treated this like they were announcing the next Batman movie with this. I mean, they went to all their social media channels on Monday saying, hey, we're making a Practical Magic 2 because we're Warner Brothers and we clearly know what we're doing with our money, which, no, you do not, because this is one of the stupidest sequel ideas I have ever seen in my life. And this is a studio that wasted so much money on sequels that were so unnecessary for franchises that had already gone past their point at this point. It's like the Harry Potter, like the Fantastic Beasts movies. The first movie was not that great to begin with, and they said, doesn't matter, we're going to make a trilogy off of it. The Matrix movies. The first movie was a classic movie on its own. Well, now we got to make it a franchise. In fact, we're going to make more of these movies because, yeah, that's another decision. That's another stupid decision that they're doing right now. Going back to Harry Potter, they're trying so hard to get J.K. Rowling to sell on the rights to Harry Potter. And if I'm J.K. Rowling, I don't care if it's how crazy I am and how transphobic I am. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that Warner Brothers stays the hell away from my stuff anymore, because what's going on at Warner Brothers right now with these decisions like this is just, it's asinine. And there's no reason to make another Practical Magic movie. I mean, the first movie was not that big of a success at all, and like, it barely even made back the budget back then, and got like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was not a big hit. It was not a big hit in either way, shape, or form, despite the fact that you have two strong leads in Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. But you know, this is like I get it. I would get it if you want to do like a reboot maybe, but again, it's a sequel to a movie that's almost 30 years old. We always have the discussion on here about, you know, making sequels to movies that are about 30 years after the original. It almost never works. Like, no one was asking for a Coming to America sequel. You know, no one was asking for that Beverly Hills Cop sequel that's coming out, and I mean, we've yet to see what will happen with it next. It's got some promise to it, but I don't know. After Coming to America, I'm just not really that keen on seeing another one of these movies. Yeah, Bad Boys was one of those few exceptions. Ghostbusters was one of those few exceptions. There are a few exceptions, but Practical Magic does not have that longevity to have another sequel be as successful as this movie is. Like with Hocus Pocus, I understand. Even though I don't like Hocus Pocus, I understand the fan base behind Hocus Pocus. I even understand the fan base behind something like Enchanted. There was no need to make an Enchanted 2 nearly 15 years after the original film? Like, it's already past the point where you could make a sequel and it would make sense to make it within the span of the original release and when you're going to make the sequel. Like I always say, between 2 to 5 years, that's when you should make a sequel to a comedy. And this Practical Magic is a comedy. And, like when you're 9 times out of 10, when you do it after that, and you're waiting all these years to do it, it never works. And, like, it just feels like desperation from Warner Brothers at this point. I can't wait for this day that Warner Brothers is finally going to realize, wow, we have terrible people working behind the scenes, who's working at the front offices at Warner Brothers. Our boss is a complete scumbag. We need to get rid of him. And until that day comes, this studio is going to continue to go downhill. I mean, this is just another example of the poor management at Warner Brothers right now, because they won't release Coyote vs. Acme, which is garnering reviews. It's already looking like people are willing to pay for the film, but they refuse to sell it because, oh, they made fun of us. Like, we can't have a movie come out that makes fun of our studio. Why not? Disney has had movies that have made fun of them for years, and yet the head of Warner Brothers is too much of a coward and a wimp to actually put something out that people want to see. Not just the general public in general. People in Hollywood have seen the movie and love it. Like, the buzz on the new Looney Tunes movie, which came out at Annecy this week, The Day the Earth Blew Up, has been more than positive. Like, it shows that people are willing to pay top money for a Looney Tunes movie. And meanwhile, Warner Brothers is just like, nope, not going to release it. Not going to release it. We're going to delete it, actually, which they won't delete it. It will basically just be sitting on a shelf at Warner Brothers for the next 10 to 20 years until they finally get their heads off their asses and fire David Zaslav. But yeah, God, that's another thing we always keep talking about every week on this show. How poorly the management at Warner Brothers is. Like, David Zaslav and Shari Redstone must be having these nice little nice little lunch breaks every day when they're talking about how they're ruining their studios. Just like, what are you doing today, Shari? Oh, I just told Skydance to F off with their $8 billion. What about you, David? Well, I just greenlit a sequel to a movie that nobody gives a shit about. Like it's just asinine right now to see that Warner Brothers continues to stoop to these lows. Like, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know where it's going to go from here. But, again, like, there's no reason for a Practical Magic 2. Like, it's been past the point where you could have made this movie. Like, give us something new. Give us something that people want to see. Put that effort into doing, I don't know, paying whatever Greta Gerwig wants to do, and Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling to do a Barbie sequel. Like, I actually heard that they were going to Warner Bros. Is planning to do a Barbie sequel with or without Greta Gerwig. Let's take the one person who put all their heart and soul into making Barbie work as well as it does, outside of Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, and just not have her in there whatsoever. That's bound to work. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And just, I don't know. This is basically just me ranting about Warner Brothers making stupid decisions again, because this is yet another stupid decision by Warner Brothers to make a sequel to a film that has not had any notoriety to it since its release. It was not even that big of a hit to begin with. Just stupidity. Just more stupidity from Warner Brothers. So there you go. Practical Magic 2. Let's go ahead and keep up with the stupid decisions here. Let's go ahead and see what's happening over at NBC. So it was a busy week at NBC late night, both for, I guess, the good, if you want to look at it, and the bad. The good, for those people out there who want to see it as good news, Jimmy Fallon has been extended through 2028 as the host of The Tonight Show, which, I've talked about it before. I'm not a big Jimmy Fallon fan. I just think, like, the problem with Jimmy Fallon is that his comedy is way too safe and marketable for a show that is, for a show like The Tonight Show, which was seen as which is supposed to be the premier late night show, and it's just a problem with late night TV in general, that it's gone more safe and marketable than we're actually trying to be funny and actually worth of merit to it. But there are those few exceptions in late night television that I do still enjoy. Like, I still enjoy Conan O'Brien. I still enjoy John Oliver. I still enjoy Stephen Colbert. I still enjoy Jon Stewart. And I still enjoy Seth Meyers, even though he's part of the other bad story from this week's NBC late night lineup, as that Late Night with Seth Meyers, they are getting rid of a pivotal part of their show. The Late Night with Seth Meyers show is losing its house band, as the story from Hollywood Reporter says. The HE Band will be playing its last tunes on Late Night with Seth Meyers this summer. NBC-imposed budget cuts to the show means that the house band, keyboard player Eli Janney, guitarist Seth Jabor, and bassist Sid Butler will be going away when Late Night begins its new season in the fall. The trio have been part of the show since its debut in 2014. Fred Armisen was the band leader for much of the time, but has been more of a guest performer in the past few years. This is from an article from Vulture from Eli Janney. Seth Meyers and Mike Shoemaker, the showrunner, brought us into person to talk about it. They expressed their regret and frustration about it. They had been trying to work it out for months, but in the end, NBC was adamant about where they would wanted the budget to go. It's not just the band, there's a whole crew that works with the band, so there's a lot of people employed. Sources confirmed that the band won't be a regular part of the show beginning next season. Janney told Vulture that while the band members won't be in the late night studio starting in the fall, viewers will still be able to hear them. He said the HE Band will record a whole bunch of music for the show to use for guest introductions and returns from commercial breaks. Among current network late-night shows, only CBS's After Midnight, which structures more like a game show, operates without a house band. Conan O'Brien's TBS show didn't have a band for the final years after going through from an hour-long show to a half-hour in 2019. Meyers recently renewed his deal on NBC, which will keep him in place as the host of Late Night through 2028. The show celebrated its 10th anniversary in February. So they're getting rid of the house band, which doesn't really seem like a bad idea on paper, in terms of how to spend the money in general, but here's the thing. Getting rid of the house band on a late night talk show is very pivotal. I mean, they are more of a part of a show than most people give them credit for, because they're not just there to play music, they're there to interact with the host. And considering that Late Night with Seth Meyers doesn't have an announcer that Seth Meyers can usually go to, like Conan O'Brien did go go back to the original days of late night. David Letterman had Paul Schaefer. And Paul Schaefer wasn't there to just be the band leader. Paul Schaefer was there to be the guy that David Letterman can go to for the punchlines and all the punchlines and the clips and all that type of stuff. Like it's a pivotal part of the show. And yeah, you look at Late Night with Seth Meyers, and the main focus of that show is mostly on the humor of what Seth Meyers brings to the table. It's more like a weekend. Seth Meyers does for what he did with Weekend Update. He brought that to late night, and I think it's worked best for him because Seth Meyers can be very, very funny with his late night with his political humor because he does it in the way that he does Weekend Update, and it's worked out great for him. I mean, I still like Seth Meyers in general. I think he's a really good late night host, but yeah, getting rid of the house band is really a pivotal piece of a late night show in general. Without that piece there, like, you really have to be a damn good host to really keep the show in focus without having the band there to be the centerpiece of it. I mean, it's like with The Simpsons when they got rid of Alf Clausen, and they had this whole lineup of like recorded music that they use for the show now with this company Bleeding Gums Music, I think it is. Bleeding Gums or Bleeding Fingers Music, I think it is. And yeah, the music on The Simpsons is still good, but it's nowhere near as good as what Alf Clausen brought to the table, because without Clausen, what he did with The Simpsons was like he scored the show like a drama. Like, it's a comedy, but he would score it like a drama, and that was one of the things about the show that like really makes it stand out in terms of in general with the music in general. And yeah, the music in general on The Simpsons has been relatively good, but it definitely does feel like there's a major difference between what Bleeding Fingers music does and what Alf Clausen does. And in this case, you can definitely see with Late Night with Seth Meyers, like it's going to be a pivotal piece taken out of the important aspects of a late night show in general, because, like I said, like Seth Meyers doesn't really have somebody else to go for the one-liners. They always go to this one guy who's always holding the cue cards, but that's really about it in general. I mean, there's nobody. You don't really interact with the announcer in general, and granted, yeah, it gives the late nights with Seth Meyers a different feel to it compared to the other late night shows. But with that said, it does take away a massive piece of a pivotal late night puzzle, and it's definitely going to feel very different without hearing the house band on Late Night with Seth Meyers anymore. And it just gets me scared that this is going to be the norm, that we're going to see all these other late night shows excuse me, taking these pivotal pieces of the show out of there, and late night's just to become more of a one-note thing. And not that it's already becoming that now, but there are still those shows out there that are still trying their best to hold it together, and NBC is just making Late Night with Seth Meyers take away something that is important, even though they won't admit it. I mean, they're basically doing what Conan O'Brien had been making fun of for years. You know, the late night budget cuts. You know, NBC is cutting down, and that one of the first shows to get it is us. And it was never really them cutting the budget in general, the way they were setting it up here. But now it's actually happened. This two hosts later with Seth Meyers, which is a shame. And I really hope the ebb and flow of the show doesn't really go away because of that. So we already badmouthed Warner Brothers this week. Let's talk about some good things with them, because they did announce some new things that sounded pretty interesting. So as I mentioned before, the Annecy Animation Festival was going on in, I think, Italy this week. I think that's where Annecy is, but I could be wrong on that. But Warner Brothers Animation did announce a number of new projects, and as much as I've talked shit about Warner Brothers as of late, some of the new stuff they've announced are pretty, very interesting to talk about here. I've got all of them right here from Variety, and the big question raised by the studio's Annecy focus is whether the surge in new shows is a temporary anomaly or marks a broader indication of a more sustained return by Warner Bros. Discovery to full-on animation production after the lull of the recent past. Certainly news will not come much bigger this year with Annecy's than Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Foster's returns, shows which helped shape fandom's sense of modern-day animation entertainment in the 2010s and just before. They've got a list of everything here, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff here to go through. So one of the big ones they first announced was Foster's Fun Time for Imaginary Friends, created by Craig McCracken. The show is back with a completely new original series targeted for preschoolers. In it, a now young group of preschool imaginary friends learns from an immature elder friend, Blue, who, as in the original, still unintentionally gets things wrong. McCracken has promised the same fast-paced fun, but with a fun, simpler structure and less cynical humor, which I don't know, the cynical humor really was the best thing about Foster Home for Imaginary Friends, if we're being honest. But this is for preschoolers, so I guess that's their way of saying it, but their way of thinking it. But Only Blue and Madame Foster return. So that's that one. Adventure Time Side Quest. As Variety has just announced, while adult-skewed Fiona and Cake is airing on Max, SideQuest takes the franchise back to a kids show, marking the early returns of the early days, with Kid Finn and his best buddy Jake fighting monsters on an epic quest in an episodic series, eschewing the long story arcs of later Adventure Times. SideQuest looks set in the same world of the original series, repeating characters such as villains as the Ice King, Nate Cash, who was a creative and then supervisor and director on Adventure Time, figures as the series creator. And this is the one that I thought was not going to work, because I read this and I thought it said that he wasn't coming back, but a new untitled regular show project. Details on the new show are being kept under wraps. It's not even known if Mordecai and Rigby are back. The key, however, is that it's from J.G. Quintel. And when I knew he was back, it's just like, okay, you've already sold me. This guy is my spirit animal. I mean, the original regular show was a classic series. I still think it's considered one of the best TV shows of the last decade. I mean, that's a show that is so damn funny, and it's a relatable show for people in their 20s, and then Close Enough was a show very relatable for people in their 30s, but got screwed over whenever HBO Max got bought, but when HBO Max went away. But the only tease was a black screen announcing a new series revealed as regular show for dramatic drum rolls. The show is entirely new, though it will feature some characters from the original series. And like I said, that's one I'm really looking forward to. Some other things they announced included a stop-motion episode of Teen Titans Go for its 400th episode, a haunted house scene from some of the things they showed off, I should say, haunted house scene from Gremlins: The Wild Batch, Invincible Fight Girl, a professional wrestling-themed anime series. Bat Family, a spin-off from Amazon Prime hit Mary the Little Batman, The Amazing World of Gumball, which they did reveal that the movie is still in the works, and they showed off stuff from Season 7. They showed off a preview of the Watchmen movie coming out on Blu-ray pretty soon, which looks pretty badass. Also heavily applauded was a never-shown first look at the brooding and ultra-noir opening and title sequences of Batman Cape Crusader, one of the most awaited of Warner Brothers animated series, given its creative pedigree, Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves, and that comes out in August. They also showed off a sneak preview of Lord of the Rings: The War of Rohirrim, which I'm assuming we're going to get a trailer for that pretty soon, since they've already started showing off little previews of the film in terms of photos. Some of the other projects they revealed: a Scooby-Doo spin-off series taking the gang to Japan called Go-Go Mystery Machine. While visiting Japan on the ultimate foodie adventure, Shaggy and Scooby-Doo unwillingly unleash hundreds of mysterious mythical monsters that are now causing trouble all over the country. Scooby turns to his uncle Daisuke-Doo. We're getting more of the Scooby-Doo uncles here, which, that's back when Scooby-Doo was at its prime. They would always add these different family members to Scooby-Doo. First it started with Scrappy-Doo, then it was Scooby-Dum, and then Yappity-Doo. Like, I'm glad to see that they're going back to doing that, because they were pointless additions, but they were fun additions at the same time. So Scooby turns to his uncle Daisuke-Doo and magical friend Itsuku and gadget whiz Toshiro to help solve the mysteries and catch the monsters. There's also a Adventure Time preschool series called Heyo BMO coming in the fantastical land of Ua. The little robot BMO is on a new adventure. Now settled into a new neighborhood with new friends, BMO approaches each challenge he faces with his unique brand of enthusiasm and curiosity in the quest to learn and fill his database. A preschool series based off of award-winning author and illustrator Nadine Shireen's picture book Barbara Throws a Warbler, about a young cat whose most days do what other cats do, until one day she throws a tantrum she can't control. The creative lead on this is actually a 2D animator on The Amazing World of Gumball, Joris Van Hooselen. There's going to be an Adventure Time movie, billed by Cartoon Network as Jake and Finn embarking on their greatest adventure yet. What they find changes their world entirely. And Rebecca Sugar, behind Steven Universe, and who was also on Adventure Time 2, serves as the creator with Muto and another Adventure Time veteran, Patrick McHale, a writer, creative director, and storyboard artist on the original series from 2010 to 2017. We have Bad Karma, a family movie project set in a fantastical, mythological world built by Warner Brothers Animation as an exciting and epic tale about courage, love, and an unlikely friendship. The title features a young demon princess Chandra and the legendary demon god Hanuman, A clip showed an Annecy turned on the two's cute meet. Creators take in Sanjay Patel, director of Oscar-nominated Sanjay Super Team, underrated Pixar short, Rajesh Devraj, writer of Arjun the Warrior Prince, Vikash Shankar, and Katie Rice. Lovey Dovey is a romantic wedding dove in search of his one true love, getting stuck with a bunch of streetwise pigeons whose only goal is to screw the large bird from a popular kids' TV show. Ava Tramer, a writer on Harley Quinn, takes the creative lead. So they announced a big amount of projects, and considering that this was a studio that shut down numerous Warner Brothers animated projects, like I mentioned, Scooby-Doo Haunted Holiday Hunt, the Urkel movie that came out on digital last year. Merry Little Batman was a movie that was scrapped and then eventually shown on Amazon Prime, and look what's happened with that. Now they're getting a spin-off with that. I mean, I'm hoping that this means that somebody told David Zaslav, hey, you can't make us get rid of every bit of animation that we have here. So you got to let us do something here. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that somebody woke him up on that front. But then again, I'm still waiting for them to finally say, hey, we're going to make it, we'll put out Coyote vs. Acme already. But at least it's a step in the right direction. So there is at least that. Speaking of things that should stay animated, let's go ahead and move on to the update on the Moana live-action film, which, yes, despite everything that's going on with the changes at Disney, they're still going to make a pointless live-action remake of Moana. So Disney has found their live-action Moana, finding it in a new leading lady. The lady is Catherine Lagaya, Laga with a apostrophe AIA. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. I'm just reading it like it is on Variety. She will star alongside Dwayne Johnson, who will reprise his role as the demigod Maui in the highly anticipated film. She says, I'm really excited to embrace this character because Moana is one of my favorites. My grandfather comes from Palua in Savari. My grandmother is from Leomega Tua on the main island of Upola in Samoa. I'm honored to have the opportunity to celebrate Samoa and all Pacific Island peoples and to represent young girls who look like me. Also joining Lagaya and Johnson in the cast are Auckland, New Zealander John Tu as Moana's father, Chief Tu. Samoan New Zealand actor Frankie Adams as Moana's mother, Sina, and Rena Owen, who hails from the Bay of Islands, New Zealand, as the revered Grandma Tala. A live-action movie was announced last April with the news that Johnson will return to star and produce. Moana is set to begin production this summer ahead of its target July 10, 2026 release date. The film is directed by Thomas Kail, Hamilton on Broadway and Disney+, Grease Live, and We Were the Lucky Ones. He says, I am thrilled to have met Catherine, Rena, Frankie, and John through this casting process. I am humbled by this opportunity, and I cannot wait to be all on set together. And there's no better pair to be in a canoe with than Catherine and Dwayne, actually trio. Hey is ready too. Kyle directs the script from a screenplay by Jared Bush, who wrote the screenplay for the 2016 film, and Daniel Ledoux Miller, a Samoan writer who created Netflix's Tide K Rescue. I am having trouble pronouncing stuff here, and I'm literally reading it off the internet here. The new movie is produced by Johnson, Danny Garcia, and Hiram Garcia, via through their $7 production banner, and Beau Flynn for Flynn Picture Co. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote the original songs, will also serve as a producer. Executive producers include Scott Sheldon, Alia Carvalho, and Charles Newworth. In her role as EP, Carvalho, who was 14 when she was cast in the original film, will mentor the teenager Lagala. At the SAG Awards, she championed the expansion of the universe with the upcoming live-action film and animated Moana 2, where she reprises her voice role. This is it. So the Moana live-action movie is happening, even though Disney has been in rebuild mode, trying to fix a lot of the problems that were wrong with the last era that they had, the last couple of years. But this is still going through, and when I look at the new actress, yeah, she definitely looks like she could fit the role of Moana, but it's just, okay, how is this going to work in live action form? Is it actually going to be something where they actually put the time and effort to it? They actually do try their best to do something that doesn't feel like a film that is trying to have like a point, have like a message to it, like a thrown in message or something like a statement to it or something like that, because that's one of the problems that the live action remakes have had the last couple of years, and that's that these movies, those live action remakes don't work because they take away the magic that made those animated movies so special. I mean, and I've been a defender of most of the live action remakes, but even I will tell you, I would never want to watch the live action remakes more than the animated movies. The animated movies are so good on their own. Like, these are just cover songs. They're just, they're fine every once in a while, but I'm never going to watch them on multiple repeats, with a couple of exceptions. Cinderella, of course, and The Jungle Book. But other than that, like, I really don't know what direction they're going to go with this. And there's good talent on board here in terms of the writer Jared Bush, the director Thomas Kail is a good director in general. I mean, they have most of the same people involved in the cast here, so I'm hoping that it's not going to go down the same route of let's just remake the animated movie again. I hope they actually do something with it. I actually hope that there's a purpose to this movie actually getting made, and not just there to just be a quick crash grab. But then again, I'm also asking for the same thing with Moana 2. And even that one I'm still very skeptical about. But yeah, we will see what happens on that one there. So that's the live-action Moana news. Some more news from Disney, and not very good news in terms of what's happening at Marvel Studios. Let's talk about Blade. And how Blade, this project that has been nearly in production for the last 5 years, is losing yet another director. So this is a film that has been in development for so long. Disney waited so long to get the rights back to this, to actually do this, and they finally get it, and yet they can't get past the first... They can't get past finding a director that will stick around here. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Blade is once again searching for new talent behind the camera. Filmmaker Yann Demange has exited the longest-standing project, The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. The departure is described as amicable and happened some time ago. It's the latest in a number of creative challenges for the project, which Marvel Studio boss Kevin Feige announced to fanfare at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019 when he surprised the crowd by bringing out star Mahershala Ali and presented him with a Blade cap. Blade was preparing to go into production in the fall of 2022 when director Bassam Tariq exited over creative differences. Then sources say Ali handpicked Lovecraft Country Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to get through this without the errors, alright? Goddamn. Alright. So, Blade was preparing to go into production in the fall of 2022 when director Bassam Tariq exited over creative differences. Then sources say Ali handpicked Lovecraft Country Helmer Demange to direct, but months later it became one of the major features delayed by the writer's strike in May 2023. As of yet, it never made it to production. Ali remains attached to star in the project, and the studio is not looking to rush the film. Marvel mainstay Eric Pearson is working on the latest draft of the project, which has a release date of November 7, 2025. The Blade news also comes as Marvel recalibrates its output and expects to have more breathing room as it releases around 2 films a year, following pressures to ramp up film and TV content in the early 2020s. Ali's Blade made a voice cameo on a post-credit scene for Eternals that will also feature Kit Harington, who plays Dane Whitman in the film. Ali is the second actor to topline a Blade film. Wesley Snipes starred in a trilogy in the 2000s. We'll get to him in just a second. Blade debuted in The Tomb of Dracula No. 10 and was created by writer Marty Wolfman and artist Gene Coleman as a half-vampire who hunts vampires to avenge the death of his mother, who was killed by a vampire as she gave birth to him. Marvel next has Deadpool and Wolverine due out July 26 and will follow it up with Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. So, yeah, let's go ahead and just say that... I'm just going to say this right now. There is no way they're making this Blade movie now. I mean, this is getting to a point where it's getting ridiculous. I mean, even Mahershala Ali's rep is saying that this is the craziest thing he's ever seen in his professional career. And I've got that story. There was a story about that where his rep came in and said that this is getting ridiculous. Let's see what it says here. At Ali's representation, lawyer Shelby Weiser can't get over the fact that the movie still doesn't come to fruition all these years later. Weiser said, per The Hollywood Reporter, that deal was in 2009 and they still haven't shot it, which is pretty much the craziest thing in my professional experience. And it wasn't just him that was actually saying something about this. The original stars of Blade also had their things to say about this. Like, Wesley Snipes really went in on this on social media. And this comes from Deadline. More than 25 years after starring in the original, Wesley Snipes took to social media this weekend to react to the news that director Yann Demange has exited the MCU entry, which is set to star Mahershala Ali as the titular human-vampire hybrid. Snipes wrote Saturday on Twitter, "Blade, lordy, folks, still looking for that secret sauce. Riding snowmobiles in traffic, kind of rough. Daywalkers make it look easy, don't they?" And the post comes after, of course, the news that on Friday that Dimitri was not coming back. But it wasn't just him that was saying that. Even Steven Dorff came in and had his things to say about the fact that this movie was still very much having problems here. And this is this comes from Yahoo Lifestyle Canada, and actually no, this is not what he had to say. This is actually from 2023. For some reason, it's posted on here as something that was said 3 days ago. Did he actually say something? Let me see here. Okay, Steven Dorff didn't really say anything recently. Someone just took what he said back in 2023 and 2021 and tried to put it as something that happened this week. But no, he didn't say anything, even though he has come out against the MCU as of late. But at the same time, though, it's just like, what needs to happen to get this movie going? Seriously, like, you've had 2 directors lead this project, and you're trying to get this out next year. And it's just, I'm really at the point now where, I think a lot of us are at the point now where we're believing that this is never going to get released. I mean, this is a film that had promising things about it at first. I mean, come on, Mahershala Ali is a 2-time Oscar-winning actor, and he seems like he was fit perfectly for the role. They were setting him up in the Eternals. Clearly, everything they were setting up in the Eternals has taken place in the MCU. I mean, you know, that big thing that's hanging around the Earth, they've brought it up many times. Actually, no, they have not. Are they ever going to explain that too? Bottom line, the MCU has had a lot of problems in the last couple of years. We've pretty much delved into all of this in the last couple of years since COVID, and like how everything's kind of changed for the MCU since then. Like clearly, there's a lot of things going on in the MCU that needs to be fixed, and I get a feeling that Blade is going to be pushed back to a point where it's going to be the Duke Nukem Forever of the MCU. Like it's going to be one of those things where everybody's just like, oh, it's coming, and it's coming. We've got a release date set here. It's coming, and then they push it back into a couple years. They get pushed back 10 years, and we don't get it until almost 20 years after it was initially announced, and it turns out to be not as good as they expected it to be. I mean, that's what this is. This is literally the Duke Nukem Forever of the MCU right now. And it's just, like, just find a director and get it done, man. Like, you've waited almost, it's going to be 6 years since they announced this to actually get made. And, like, it just, like I said, it just needs to happen. I'm thinking it's not going to happen anytime soon. I would not be surprised if within the next couple of weeks that this thing gets pushed back to another date. And they probably move it with another MCU project in the works. But yeah, that's one of the big stories from this week. Let's get to probably the biggest story in Hollywood this week, and that is that while Sony Pictures didn't pick up Paramount this week, they did pick up something in particular. So yeah, for the first time in a while now, a major studio is going to own a theater chain, and not just any theater chain, the Alamo Drafthouse. Sony Pictures announced this week that they've acquired the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema in a deal that puts a major Hollywood studio back in the business of owning a movie theater for the first time in more than 75 years, with certain exceptions. From 1948 until 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice prohibited film distributors from owning an exhibition company under what was known as the Paramount Consent Decrees, which arose from a 1948 U.S. Supreme Court ruling. The decrees essentially dismantled the old Hollywood studio system by forcing the majors to divest of their theater holdings. At the time, the majors essentially controlled all aspects of filmmaking, from the talent to the production to the theaters. The decrees following exhibitionist stopped practices like block booking, bundling multiple films into one theater license, and circuit dealing, entering into one license that covers all theaters in the theatrical circuit. The landscapes were radically different then. However, there were no multiplexes, but rather one-screen theaters that could play one movie for months, a scenario that played into favoritism. Sony is the first major Hollywood studio to step forward and test the water since the Paramount decrees were officially rescinded in 2020. The rules have been relaxed for some in the 1980s as studios, including Sony and Universal, bought various stakes in certain chains, but the economics ultimately did not make sense. The only major film producers to acquire theaters since 2000 were Netflix and Amazon. Netflix purchased Los Angeles' Egyptian Theater and New York's Paris Theater in order to appease filmmakers who wanted their films to play on the big screen, as well as to qualify their titles for awards consideration. Amazon had the same aim when buying the old ArcLight location in downtown Culver City in Los Angeles. Although that cinema is a first-run theater, meaning Amazon has to book new movies in addition to its offerings. In a reverse twist, the world's largest cinema owner, AMC Theaters, got into the distribution business last year when acquiring the rights to Taylor Swift's Eras Tours documentary. Alamo filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2021 when it was still reeling amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Altamont Capital, Fortress Investment Group, and League emerged as its own owners post-bankruptcy. Sources say other parties looking at Alamo included Cinemark and a major exhibitor in Latin America. Alamo is hardly the only exhibitor that considered or is considering bankruptcy in the aftermath of the pandemic and the writers and actors strikes, which have slowed the content pipeline to a trickle. Domestic revenue year-to-date is down more than 24%. Wednesday's announcement stresses that the Alamo Drafthouse, an independent chain of 35 locations that has been at the forefront of in-theater dining and other consumer-friendly initiatives, will continue to be run by Alamo CEO Michael Kusterman under a new division that he'll also be in charge of, Sony Pictures Experiences. Sony says the deal reinforces its long-held commitment to theatrical exhibition and continues initiatives in experiential entertainment. I thought it said experimental here. Anything else in particular to add here? Alamo Drafthouse, if you don't know, was founded in 1997 by Tim and Carrie League as a single-screen mom-and-pop repertory theater in Austin, Texas, and has grown into a thriving and dynamic dine-in cinema chain that is beloved by the fans and industry alike. As North America's seventh-largest theatrical chain, it releases more movies per year than any other theater chain, welcoming over 10 million guests annually, and has built a highly engaged core audience of 4 million loyalty members. Last year, the theater chain saw a 30% jump in box office revenue from the previous year, which came in ahead of the industry at large. And this news is sure to be met with a mix of relief and worry for the chain's famously devoted fans. On the one hand, Alamo has been battling severe financial problems since it declared bankruptcy in 2021 and was rescued by a private equity firm. Last week, 5 North Texas locations closed amidst a franchise likewise filing for bankruptcy. Sony coming on board gives the theater chain some assuredly solid financial backing moving forward and hope for investment for further expansion. Yet Alamo, which is currently operating theaters in 14 states, is arguably the only theater chain in the country with a very specific and well-owned personality, one you can trace back to the company's roots as single-room theater founded in downtown Austin. Alamo's movie pre-shows, for instance, are full of clever and carefully curated archival footage related to the upcoming film, with no advertising. The chain invested in ongoing unique programming like its popular Master Pancake live movie mocking events. It hosts occasional bold stunts such as the 2015 Star Wars movie Endurance Marathon, with a theater full of fans competing to see who can endure watching the sci-fi saga the longest. The winner lasted for 46 hours straight. Alamo also is what's considered the country's strictest theater chain with no talking and no texting policy, which it pioneered with pre-ad shows has a link to this famous profane viral example, which I'll go ahead and play a little bit here.
You know what? I didn't know that wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy ass theater. It was too fucking dark in that place for me to find my seat, alright? I was using my phone as a flashlight to get to my fucking seat. So excuse me for using my phone in USA, the United States of America, where you are free to text.
And yes, you heard her right. She said, in USA, United States of America. Now, keep in mind, this was posted 13 years ago, back in 2011, and before Donald Trump, so this isn't like a MAGA thing. No, this is clearly somebody who's probably not that bright to begin with by leaving this message here in general, but let's go ahead and play that again and continue on from there.
USA, United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater.
This woman clearly isn't bright either, because this is the early definition of a Karen right here. The person that says, I could do whatever I want. I'm allowed to go text to the theater if I want to. And then the cops come and they arrest her and they make a big deal talking about she's being harassed, or I know my rights, that type of stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. I was going to keep it going, but as soon as I saw that, I had to say something about that.
I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, alright? I've texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a fuck about what I was doing on my fucking phone, alright?
This is the type of person that probably also goes into the theater with their boyfriend at like midnight screenings to just have sex in the theater. Because there are stories out there of people that do that, especially during early midnight screenings. Of course, one of the most notorious ones is when Cinema Snob, when they did like the midnight screenings. I think Jake went to go see Mr. Popper's Penguins, and somebody was like having sex in the movie theater while that was going on. Again, I didn't want to stop there, but I just had to bring that up. But this person does not sound like the brightest person in the world. Like she feels like a person that was waiting to say this and has no idea what she's saying. But she probably came out of this thinking like, I won this battle. When no, you did not.
And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me, and I'm sure that's what you do. You know, to whip people off. You take my money, and then you throw me out. You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Drafthouse or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite. And, I'm going to tell everyone about how shitty you are. And I'm pretty sure you guys are being assholes on purpose. So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money, asshole.
You're welcome, it says at the end. So yeah, that was that little thing. I wasn't even going to play it, but they had a link to it, so I put it up there anyway. But one question moving forward will be, will Alamo be able to keep its independent spirit now that it's under major studio ownership? Although generally speaking, studios aren't involved with such things as pre-show ads or cinema policies. That's up to the exhibitors. And this is a pretty big deal because I know a lot of people from down in Austin, Texas. Spill, of course, Double Toasted, Corey Coleman, Martin, all those guys. That's their big theater chain down there. And we don't have I don't think we have an Alamo Drafthouse here up here in Pennsylvania, or at least in the Pittsburgh area. If I'm not, let me double check here just to be sure, because it does say there are in 14 different areas. And let me see. I don't think there is one in the Pittsburgh area. Well, they just had a map on the last page I had here. No, the closest one I see is in Baltimore. Actually, there's a couple in Baltimore. There's a couple in New Jersey, but I believe in maybe New York. The next one is in Virginia. There's a couple in Illinois. There's one in Missouri. I didn't want to click that. Springfield, Missouri. There's one in North Carolina. In Raleigh. There's all the ones in Dallas, and then I think that's it. There's not a whole lot in a lot of different places. So I can't really say for certain what the Alamo Drafthouse experience is like, because I've never been to an Alamo Drafthouse theater. But from what I've heard, it's pretty amazing stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Sony does with this in particular. If Sony and what the Alamo Drafthouse will be like, if it changes at all. I don't think Sony's going to really go in there and major changes. Like I saw a lot of the jokes when this was first announced. The first thing they're going to do is a 24-hour marathon of Madam Web. Like that was one of the jokes that they were talking about early on. That's the story about the Alamo Drafthouse. We got one more story to cover here, and then we can go ahead and get on out of here. And this is not an entertainment story in any way. This is actually a local sports story involving the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they had the biggest story going on in the NFL this week, and that was the news that Mike Tomlin has secured a new extension of his contract. And I've got the story here from the NFL website. The January head-ringing over Mike Tomlin's security proves to be pointless. The Steelers coach has signed a 3-year extension, the team announced on Monday. Mike Tomlin's leadership and commitment to the Steelers has been pivotal in our success during his first 17 years as head coach. Steelers president Art Rooney II said in a statement when the got announced. Extending his contract for 3 more years reflects our confidence in his ability to guide the team back to winning playoff games and championships while continuing our tradition of success. Yes, that great playoff success that you've had since 2016 without having being one and done in the postseason. But I'll get to that in just a second. As the longest tenured active coach in the NFL, Tomlin has defined stability in Pittsburgh. He's never finished with a losing record in his 17 seasons, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, but I'll get to that in just a second. Has led the Steelers to 7 AFC North titles, 11 playoff bids, and 2 Super Bowl appearances, winning his first in 43 in 2008. Perhaps most importantly, Tomlin has guided the Steelers to respectable contention, even with working with a thin roster. Tomlin cycled through 3 quarterbacks in 2023, yet still managed to lead Pittsburgh to a 10-7 finish and an unlikely postseason berth, besting his 2019 efforts, in which he nearly propelled the Steelers to the playoffs despite being forced to turn to Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges following Ben Roethlisberger's season-ending elbow injury. If we've learned anything from the Steelers in the post-Roethlisberger era, it's how important Tomlin's experience and leadership has been in keeping the franchise afloat. That's what's made the concern regarding his job both interesting and peculiar following the end of the 2023 season, another campaign in which the coach deserved to be commended despite the lack of a fight in the loss to Buffalo on Super Wildcard Weekend. Pittsburgh is a franchise that simply does not change whether it comes to head coaches. Tomlin is only the 3rd head coach of the Steelers since the hiring of Chuck Noll in 1969, and despite not winning a playoff game in 7 years, he has proven his worth repeatedly by managing to prevent catastrophe in the Steel City. The Steelers have rightfully done what was necessary to keep Tomlin atop the hierarchy in Pittsburgh with his extension, with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields now filling out the quarterback depth chart following a remarkably productive offseason. Tomlin and the Steelers have checked off another island with a new contract. All that's left is to complete the work needed to compete in 2024 and beyond. It doesn't say how much he gets here, but it was supposedly the second highest paid contract. Let me see if I can find the money here. Let me see. Is this one? Okay, here it is. This is from the Tribune Review. We know Mike Tomlin signed a contract extension on Monday to replace being the head coach of the Steelers through 2027. What we don't know is how much money he's getting. However, one social media post from Andrew Filipponi of 93.7 The Fan, which Andrew Filipponi, if you don't live in the Pittsburgh area, he's one of those radio guys that, like, he's one of those guys that just, like, he's a radio person. I think is just like, he's one of those guys that can't be trusted around here. If you like, he thinks he knows everything, and he really does not. He always predicts the Steelers to win in games when they're obviously going to lose at. But he does say here that he indicates that he is making between $19 and $20 million, trailing only Kansas City's Andy Reid among NFL coaching salaries. Reid has won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. Back in 2022, Sportico tabbed Tomlin's last contract at $12.5 million, 4th in the NFL at the time behind Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, and Sean McVay. If these new numbers are accurate, the ticket is impossible to justify for a coach that's failed to win a playoff game in 11 of the past 13 seasons and 7 years in a row. Yeah, that's a good point right there. Let's just get right down to it. The Steelers are paying Mike Tomlin $20 million over the next 3 years to not do the same thing that he's been doing the last couple of years. Like, that's unbelievable. And look, Mike Tomlin was a good head coach when he got here. He got the Steelers to a Super Bowl. Say what you will about him using coward's plays, but you know what? Bill Belichick used the same players that Adam Gase, Pete Carroll had when he made it to the Super Bowl. Andy Reid had the guys that scratch that about Andy Reid, but you get what I'm saying here. The whole idea of the fact that everyone's like, well, Mike Tomlin won the Super Bowl with the guys that Bill Cowher had. I mean, it's not his. It's like, okay, yeah. I would have said that argument was null and void, but it's hard not to think that now, considering that, yeah, 6 of the last times they've gone to the playoffs, it's always been one and done against teams they should beat. Like, they should not have let Cleveland come into Pittsburgh and completely dismantle them. You should have put up more of a fight against Kansas City and Buffalo. Like I said it before, but when that game happened, I literally turned it off as soon as Buffalo started making clear, consistent throws to players, and it was going on every single time because I turned it off because I knew exactly what was going to happen. The Steelers were going to let the Bills take this huge lead, and then they were going to try to make a comeback at the end, but too little, too late. And that's what's been going on the last 3 times they've been to the playoffs. 4 times, actually, because they did that with Jacksonville in the year that they probably should have gone to the Super Bowl. But, Mike Tomlin the Steelers couldn't keep their mouth shut talking about, we're looking ahead to New England and not this Jacksonville team. And then they probably got their asses handed to them. I'm very conflicted by this. on the one hand, yeah, stability. Yes, stability. You get, yeah, you got a guy that knows what he's doing. I mean, he's been there long enough. The Steelers do not make these changes very often, and yeah, I get that, but that's part of the problem, though. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys. Look at what go back to Tom Landry. They had Tom Landry as their head coach for decades, and then when they finally got rid of him and put in Jimmy Johnson, look what happened to them. They turned into a powerhouse in the '90s, and I just don't see the Steelers really doing that at this point. I really do not. I just don't feel like they're doing anything at all to really hold this team together. Like Mike Tomlin, I really don't think he's doing enough to hold the team together because they're so stuck in the past. And yeah, you've got all these pieces there, but the problem is when it matters the most, you can't finish the job when it's over with. Like, you can't get to that next level because you can't get past these teams that are clearly much more prepared than you are because they're not doing the same thing every single week. I always make the joke that the Steelers always take the old playbooks from teams they played in the past and are just like, well, if this worked before, it's clearly got to work this time around, and it doesn't. The team is just stuck right now, and they just have nowhere to go at this point. And I'm sorry, I don't see the Steelers in the same way that I look at the Kansas City Chiefs or even the Baltimore Ravens or any of these other teams in the AFC right now. Like, I see 31 other teams who are actually trying to improve, trying to do something outside of the norm, trying to do something completely different. I take that back 30 because the Dallas Cowboys and the Steelers kind of are the same thing, honestly. Like, they're stuck in a time period where they think that no matter what they do, they're gonna turn it around. And like here, it's just I just can't see this working out well for them. Except that it's like, I really didn't see the Steelers get into another Super Bowl in the next couple of years, especially with Mahomes leading the team, the Chiefs the way he's leading it right now. The Chiefs are winning because of him, and like, he's the new Tom Brady. Like, he's the new guy that you have to beat in order to get to the Super Bowl. If you don't stop him or the Chiefs, you ain't winning another Super Bowl in your life. I don't care who you are. It's just getting to that point now where it's just like you have no choice but to have to get past him, and it's going to be hard to do unless something really happens to him in the next couple of years. This is Mahomes' era right now. This is the Chiefs. The Chiefs will be the team of the 2020s in the NFL. But the thing with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin is just like, it's not surprising, but I do really wish that they just move on and try to do something different. To just change the culture around there, for God's sakes. But I don't run the organization, and this is the situation that we're in right now. So Mike Tomlin's the head coach for the next 3 years. So yay! Can't wait for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some recommendations, and then we can go ahead and get on out of here. And in terms of physical releases, it's a pretty weak week for new releases. Like I said, I've said it before, it's every 2 weeks now with the big new releases. Although we are getting the physical release of American Fiction, the Cord Jefferson written film, which won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Hearing a lot of good things about it. I haven't yet to see it yet, so maybe this week that might be something I'll definitely see if I can get. Bound is getting a nice Criterion collection. Beverly Hills Ninja, the Chris Farley movie, is getting a nice Blu-ray release this week. The Karate Kid's getting a retro 4K Blu-ray release. American Gigolo's getting a new Arrow re-release this week. This is a good one. Chinatown and the Two Jakes. Chinatown's coming out on 4K as part of the Paramount Presents collection, and you've also got the Two Jakes, which has never been released on Blu-ray before. But this particular set has Chinatown on 4K only, and the Two Jakes on Blu-ray. That seems really weird for them to do that, but that's the set that comes out this week. But the Two Jakes is actually, I give it a lot more credit than it definitely deserves. It's actually a much better film than I think people let on. And I'd probably be curious to see if I can find a copy of that somewhere at a good price, too. It's just going to depend on where can I find it at a reasonable price where I'm not spending a ton of money on it. Because I don't think it's going to be in stores next week when I go to Barnes & Noble. But in terms of streaming stuff, there is one new thing that came out this week that you might not have heard about, but did eventually make its release on the online out there, and basically through Max, and that's the Daffy Duck short, Daffy Duck in Wacky Land, which was a short that was talked about for a number of years, and it was pretty much shelved for the longest time, and then just this past week, Max decided we're going to put it out there, but you're going to have to go out and search it, though. It's going to be the last of the new episodes. Like, no joke, it's the last of the new episodes on the Looney Tunes Cartoons page. But if you type Daffy and Wacky Land in Max's search bar, it'll be the first thing that comes up. And, yeah, it just goes to show that Warner Brothers was literally trying to bury this. And I gotta say, man, if you have not seen this short, you need to check it out. It's basically a similar short to what happened with Porky Pig and Dodo from the classic cartoon from back in the day, but this time it's Daffy Duck pursuing Yo-Yo Dodo through Wacky Land in search of a simple meal, and it's produced in glorious stop-motion animation with a lot of nods and homages to the stuff of, like, Frank Tashlin style of animation. Some really good animation all around here. It's about as amazing and enjoyable as you can get with trippy as hell stuff. Great voice work by Eric Bauza, just downright insanity. It's classic Looney Tunes at its best, and again, they're trying to bury it for you, but you need to see it. It's out there on Max. Type in Daffy and Wacky Land in the search bar. It's right there. Watch it. You'll have the time of your life with it. That's probably my biggest recommendation of the whole week, Daffy and Wacky Land. So with that said, that's going to wrap this week's episode of the Reviewing Network Live up. We're always posting every Sunday night here on the Reviewing Network Live. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe button and join us next Sunday for another all-new episode. We also post stuff here every day, including trailer reactions, time about the movie's flashback. We'll have some other things coming up in the next couple of months that I'll talk about in the State of the Reviewing Network coming up here on this show in 2 weeks' time. So be on the lookout for that at the end of the month. But other than that, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you guys on next week's show. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, we are out.